All right, so we're talking about plot or character driven stories, and we are going to start with one of my favorite shows, Crazy Ex Girlfriend. Um, the funniest thing about this is that it's very similar to another one of my favorite shows, Bojack Horseman. Um, they're very similar. They're both character driven stories, and we'll talk about that. Um, and they maintain that through their entire run, as well as both centering around mental health, which is probably why they both hit rather close to home, but that's also why they're good shows. Um, so we talked about in my plot or character driven story like intro that it's all about the character's decisions, and that's what drives the plot. So Rebecca's first decision that kind of jumpstarts our story is her decision to follow Josh to move to from New York to California. Now we see throughout the first season that decision sets off kind of a domino effect for everyone in her world. Um, Now the real decision was to follow Josh, but as Rebecca spends most of the first season in severe denial, we'll go with she decided to move coasts. Now that decision was driven by loneliness, anxiety, depression, and a general feeling of being overwhelmed. We see that in her first couple of scenes. Um, the decisions she made after moving to California did nothing to help that, but you'll see similar patterns. Um, so, what I love about this show, one of the things I love about the show, is that the theme song is directly reflective of Rebecca's mental state for a majority of the season. So, in the first season, she's is mostly her being in denial, and her season one song reflects that. I love the fact that it's a musical show because, yes, I'm a total theater kid, but it also does an amazing job of breaking up the heavier parts of the show. Um, Whenever a show deals with something as heavy as mental health, um, or anything like that, you need something to like alleviate some of the darker parts. And the music is a great way to do that. The whole show revolves around Rebecca's relationships. So let's start there. Rebecca and Josh. Now they do have a pretty short-lived relationship eventually, but there was no non-toxic way for this relationship to start. Um, an arguably more telling relationship is Rebecca and Greg, one I rooted for so hard. Um, they're both pretty messed up, so their time together gives us a lot of incredible character moments. Um, from minute one, Greg is interested in her because she isn't showing any interest in him. And later he comes to that kind of self-aware like reaction. Um, but when they finally go on a date, she leaves Greg and sleeps with some rando dude she meets on their date. Greg is justifiably angry, and in the confrontation with that, you see her kind of retreat into herself, and she goes, and it's like she realized for the first time that she fucked up. When he's like, dude, really? You slept with someone on our date? What is wrong with you? She's like, I don't do this. I don't adult. I don't confront my feelings. We were being adultish. I can't do this. Um, Now she's obviously self-sabotaged before that, but that's like the first big moment where you see them connect, you see her have a feeling, you see her process her emotions in a healthy way, and then she basically goes, can't do it. She gets scared, she runs off. Um, Her and Greg spend more time arguing with each other and against each other than they do being affectionate with each other, even when they are together. And I think that's very telling for both of them. Now, Rebecca has really great moments that show her character outside the context of her breakdowns and hyperfixations, and really get to the core of who she is. The first that springs to mind is when she helps Daryl and his ex-wife come to an agreement for joint custody of Madison. It's a really sweet moment, and it showed what she was capable of when her heart and her mind was in the right place. So that episode started because she was trying to prove to Greg that she was a good person when she is a good person. But we see how much what other people think of her affects her. And I think that remains very telling throughout the first season and through the remainder of the show. Another major decision that was driven by loneliness and anxiety was her decision to do a pole dance on the group's party bus on their way to the beach. Um, and while impressive, it was wildly inappropriate, the entire wrong setting, and made everyone uncomfortable. And then Valencia rightfully calls her out on her behavior. And Rebecca basically gaslights her in front of the group and shifts the conversation to incite a fight between Josh and Greg. Um, and what the party bus episode shows us is that when Bex is feeling lonely or left out, she acts out for attention, and it doesn't necessarily have to be positive attention. Her attempt for attention is normally damaging to someone else's relationships. Now we get out of denial by episode 9, when Rebecca admits to Paula that she's in love with Josh. But she's still covering up her affection for him. She even goes as far as to create a fake boyfriend who ends up being just as crazy as she is. Trent is the male version of Rebecca, and without the screen time to make him endearing, it is just creepy. And Trent pops back up throughout the series, and it does help Rebecca kind of confront her own behavior, which is why I think he's kind of a really important character. Another majorly bad decision that led to the downfall of Rebecca was her decision to sell her family heirloom to follow Josh to Hawaii. Now, we know that storyline doesn't play out the way it started, but not only was it one of the crazier things she had done that season, but selling a family ring that was a symbol of her mother's approval, absolutely insane. Villain in My Own Story is the most incredible character awareness song. Even more so because she witnessed Josh tell Valencia that he doesn't love Rebecca. And so I really love that song because it really, you're like, girl, finally, like, get it together. But as we've discussed, our main character's decisions are not the only ones that drive the story. I think we should discuss Paula, Josh, and Greg a little bit as well. First off, Josh's initial decision to stay with Valencia despite his attraction to Rebecca might not have actually been the best one. They end up breaking up at the end of the season anyway because Valencia doesn't respect him as a person. But it really does nothing but cause tension and mistrust in their relationship, as well as kind of lead Rebecca on a little bit. Josh's decision to kiss Rebecca simply made this problem worse. And though his decision to tell Valencia that him and Rebecca kissed was a responsible one, choosing to stay with her was one that he very clearly instantly regretted, though he still tries to, like, go through the motions of marrying her, but he was in fact just going through the motions. His heart was not in that, and then he realized at his sister's wedding that he was never going to be able to get to do anything his own way. And actually, props to Valencia for walking away. 15 years is a long time. Now, Rebecca and Greg were short-lived, but truly my favorite possible relationship. Their kinds of broken fit each other really well, but that's also why they didn't work. They were both expert self-sabotagers. Right when they could have been good together and worked through their crap together, they self-destructed. Greg's decision to get absolutely trashed at Josh's sister's wedding and ruin his and Rebecca's relationship will always upset me, but her response to it is so much worse. She claims to have feelings for Greg. She tells him this. He gets drunk and passes out. She leaves the wedding with Josh. That girl's emotions are so fickle. I have whiplash. She's really impulsive, not at all rational, and she really doesn't seem very good at assessing her emotions, like, at any given time, because I'm still not fully convinced she knows what she's feeling, ever. However, the fact that we get so much insight into her emotions all the time with these songs is more evidence of this being a character-driven story. In a plot-driven story, you definitely wouldn't have the running internal dialogue happening. So what makes the audience root for Rebecca? What makes us care about her when she's so obviously a stalker who makes really poor decisions? Well, the personal answer is that she's also very obviously sick. Um, like there's something wrong in her brain, and that helps the audience not fully fault her for her actions. So there's a very clear connectivity to her and relatability to her because her character is so open and so raw. And I think at any given time, I told Patrick, my husband, I get so much secondhand embarrassment from watching that show because it's either things I've done out loud or things I've done internally that I just hate myself for even having the thought of. Um, but it's all relatable. It all makes sense. Um, and just seeing someone do it, you're just watching her going, oh my God, why are we okay? We're still doing this. You're gonna, okay, that's great. And I think shows that do that to you, first of all, only character driven stories can do that. But I think shows that do that to you are really fun to watch because it gives you insight into yourself as well. This show gets so much deeper, and I can't wait to talk about seasons 2, 3, and 4. But we're gonna rewatch BoJack Horseman as well, because I think the shows that force you to look in the mirror and force your problems in front of your face can be very healing. They can also allow you to hide, which is what I did for a really long time. But I think shows like that are really, really important. And yes, TV is for entertainment, media is for entertainment, but way more often than not, media is to make you feel something. And shows like this definitely make you feel something. And I think that that's more common with character-driven stories than it is with plot-driven ones. Yeah, so let me know what you think about the show. If you've seen it, if you haven't, ask questions. And I will see you back here for season 2.